Doom 3 originally came out on August 3rd, 2004 on PC, and later that year it also ported it to Linux. Aspyr ported it to Mac in 2005, and Vicarious Visions ported it to Xbox later that same year. It was published by Activision.
Move this man!
But we don't hold that against it. The BFG Edition was released on October 16, 2012 in North America, with a global release just a few days later on October 19th. The BFG Edition specifically was published by Bethesda Softworks, and I don't care how you feel about Bethesda, they don't suck anywhere near as much as Activision. This video is going over the BFG Edition, specifically the Xbox 360 port. And before you go whining about, but you should be playing the original version because of the flashlight and shut up, we're talking about Xbox 360 games, delete your comment. Now the rest of you, let's talk about the BFG Edition. Doom 3 pretends the first two games never happened, which makes me wonder why they decided to add the 3 in that case. The premise is basically the same. The USC base on Mars gets invaded by demons and you're the one who has to put a stop to it. This time though, the story is a lot more pronounced. The game starts off with an intro that sort of reminds me of the intro of the first Resident Evil movie. There's some exposition about how the UAC is the richest and most powerful megacorp in the universe, and they basically have infinite resources and they're researching all these advanced technologies. You're just some random Marine who gets transferred to the Mars base for security, I guess? I feel like this character's overqualified for this job. Also arriving at the Mars base are Counselor Swan and his bodyguard Jack Campbell, and they're here to get to the bottom of some very strange things that have been happening here. It very quickly becomes painfully obvious that this guy, Dr. Betruger, who couldn't possibly be a more obvious bad guy if he literally had devil horns, was behind it all. Surprise, surprise. From there, you can punch turkeys for as long as you can stand it before reporting to your superior, Sergeant Kelly, and your first task is to find a scientist who's gone missing. Along the way, you'll see all manner of UAC personnel going about their day, and you can get a feel for all the strange things that have been happening. Once you find the missing scientist, he tells you he's trying to get a communication out before all hell quite literally breaks loose, and the demonic invasion begins. From here, it's more or less what you'd expect. Navigate your way through the levels, killing every demon you see along the way. But this time around, most keys are replaced by various PDAs you can find laying around, left by UAC employees now dead. These PDAs not only act as keys of sorts, granting you clearance for different areas of the game, but also let you listen to audio logs and read emails that can not only clue you in on access codes for various storage lockers and doors, but gives us the bulk of the world building in the game. And the world building is really well done. None of it is necessary to understand what's going on. You can get by without knowing any of it, but it's there if you want to dig into it, and there's a lot to dig into. None of it is especially deep, but it is interesting. Aside from the UAC, we get a brief look into the Mixum Corporation and their rival Moxum, and there's even a website that sends spam emails, MartianBuddy.com, that was actually a website you could go to back in the day. The code for a couple of storage lockers in the game was found there. Nowadays, it just redirects to Doom's website, but back then it made for a nice interactive experience outside of the game itself. Besides the addition of a whole shit ton of world building, the biggest change Doom 3 made was in its atmosphere, which the world building plays heavily into. It's dark, it's eerie, it's grotesque and fucked up and violent for so many more things than just killing demons. You're not running around at blazing speed jamming into midis inspired by popular rock and metal of the early 90s. You move slower. There's almost no music, just ambience. And when it's there, it's intense and used to build suspension. The level design lends into this very well. The environments all feel appropriately oppressive, not only as the base of a soulless megacorporation, but as the setting for an action horror video game. And there's more environmental storytelling around every corner. The lighting at the time this game came out was top of the line, and even still to this day looks really good. There's a flashlight you can use to light up dark areas, and in the basic edition of the game, you weren't able to use your flashlight and gun at the same time. You had to choose between the two. The BFG Edition changes this, allowing you to use both at once. This was, to say the least, a divisive change. Some people say it ruins the atmosphere, but I don't hate it. The game is still plenty creepy either way, and you can't convince me that a space marine wouldn't be smart enough to carry a hands-free flashlight. Visually, it's fantastic. Environments look like what they're supposed to look like, and Doom 3 has quite possibly the best looking hell levels out of any Doom game that's come out before or since. One thing that really sticks out is how different demons look in Hell versus in Mars. In Hell, a lot of the demons take on a more burned appearance, and that is a really cool attention to detail that the newer Doom games are just sadly missing. One thing the game does that I don't really care for is when you go into the Hell section, the game takes your weapons away. You get most of them back quickly enough, so it's not too big of an issue, but it is annoying. I get why you had to pistol start each new episode of Doom 1. It was just how the episodic structure worked. You had to start a new game to play a different episode. There's no real reason for it here. You could probably come up with some bullshit narrative reason, but for gameplay, which is the most important thing because this is a game, it just sucks to have that happen. It happens again when you leave the Hell section to go back to the Mars base. I don't like it. As for the levels themselves, the game usually does a pretty good job of signposting where it wants you to go next, either by opening a door that was previously barred or having new enemies spawn on the correct path, but there were a couple times I did wander around genuinely lost, only to stumble on a switch or door that I overlooked, or one time having a switch refuse to trigger because I wasn't standing in the right place and the door was supposed to have closed behind me. Another thing that plays into the game's atmosphere is the demon redesigns. Almost all of the demons look entirely different. Some of them behave differently, and there's even a handful of new types as well, for better or worse. The zombie types are pretty standard. Some have weapons, some don't. Some of them are fat, some of them are on fire, and some of them will walk around without a head. But where you really start to see a difference is the imp, not just in appearance, but in behavior as well. Not only will it stand there and shoot fireballs at you, but it can lunge at you too, taking a big swipe and dealing a bunch of damage. It's still recognizable as an imp, but there's definitely a change there. The Pinky hasn't changed its behavior much, but it looks entirely different. Now it's this four-legged thing, and its hind legs are mechanical for some reason. I don't know. I never figured that out. The Cacodemon hasn't changed its behavior either, but looks entirely different, and I do not like it. It looks derpy. It's got what looks like a fucked up hand hanging down from the bottom of it. I don't know. I don't like this redesign at all. The Revenant looks and acts basically the same, but instead of being a full skeleton, it's got this sort of transparent skin. Lost Souls basically look the same, but they don't have horns anymore, at least not in the base game. They do in the expansions. They still suck, but they're not the most annoying enemy in the game anymore. We'll get there in a minute. One that got a heavy redesign that carried over into the new Doom games is the Hell Knight. Why does Doom 3's Hell Knight look like it has a butt on its face? I don't hate it, but I like the classic version better, even if it is just a palette swap Baron of Hell who aren't in this game, which is odd when you consider that this is technically a reboot, and the Hell Knight wasn't in Doom 1. The Baron was. But I digress. Doom 3 Hell Knights are tough, man. They pretty much just stomp around and throw those green fireballs at you. The behavior is basically the same, but they do a lot more damage and are a lot spongier. The green fireball thing also has splash damage now, which can make them a lot more difficult. What's the plural of Mancubus? They look and act the same too, but they've got these wannabe Cthulhu tentacles on their face now. The Archvile, which was also not in Doom 1, but it's here, and it's still annoying. It's actually easier than it is in Doom 2. Instead of reviving dead enemies, which it can't do because corpses don't stick around in this game, it summons enemies instead. It still throws fire in your general direction, but it doesn't do near as much damage, and it's much easier to avoid, but still, you're going to want to take this one out quick. I mentioned the Lost Souls aren't the most annoying enemy types in the game anymore. Now that title is tied, and the Lost Souls aren't even in the running. These spider things and these baby things, I can't be bothered to look up the name for either one of them because I hate them so much. I don't even find them creepy or frightening or anything, just irritating. Like, the whole reason they exist is to piss off the player. They just swarm you, and if you kill them, more just keep showing up. They're awful, and I hate everything about everything they do. The bosses, for the most part, are very much shoot them until they die, but a couple of them have mechanics you need to learn before you can take them down. For example, a new weapon you get late in the game is called the Soul Cube, and it can be used after you kill 5 enemies. It'll instantly kill one non-boss enemy to target and fully heal you in the process. You need this weapon to kill the Cyber Demon at the end of the game. No matter what, no other weapon will work. Which makes for an incredibly gimmicky and boring final boss fight, but hey, at least it's not a wall texture. Oh, and the Cyber Demon also got a redesign, and not only is it gigantic, but also ugly in all the wrong ways. I don't like it. Here's where I would spend a bunch of time talking about the weapons and power-ups, but almost none of them are significantly different enough from classic Doom weapons for me to dive into without repeating myself. You do get a machine gun this time around, and also every gun requires reloading. That's not a bad idea on its own, but the reload animations are all really slow. If you get stuck having to reload in the middle of a combat, you can open yourself up to getting swarmed, and you'll end up having a bad time real quick. The BFG 9000 works differently than it used to, kind of. It works more like Quake 2's BFG 10K, but you have to charge it up, and if you charge it for too long, it kills you. It's hard to judge exactly how long is too long, so it can be easy to blow yourself up. I don't know whose idea it was to make it that way, but it's annoying. There's no super shotgun in the base game, but it does make an appearance in the expansions. We'll get there in a minute. The basic shotgun has a really bad reputation in this game for being wildly inconsistent and ineffective, but I don't think that's entirely true. It is sort of inconsistent, but it's fine as long as you know how to use it. As far as power-ups go, they're almost entirely gone. You of course get your health and armor pickups, but no megaspheres, no invisibility, no invincibility. The one that makes the return is the Berserk, but it's been severely limited and only shows up twice in the entire base game. Now the BFG Edition is bundled with 2 expansions, Resurrection of Evil, and unique to the BFG Edition is the Lost Mission. Not exactly the most creative name, but here we are. Resurrection of Evil, which originally came out in 2005 for PC and also had an Xbox port, sees you playing as a completely different but still functionally identical Space Marine 2 years after the events of the base game, sent to investigate a satellite signal found on Mars. You find an artifact that looks kind of like a fucked up heart, and more demons start to invade. After fighting through the Mars base again, you meet up with Elizabeth McNeil, who tells you about the artifact and then tells you that you have to go into hell to destroy it. The artifact itself acts as a new weapon of sorts. Well, weapon isn't really the right word. It's more like a portable, rechargeable power-up. It doesn't do much on its own, but after you beat one of the expansion's 3 bosses, all of which are basically just Hell Knight variants with different boss fight mechanics tied to them, the artifact gets charged with a different power, and they stack. First is Hell Time, which just slows down time. It's useful and even necessary for navigating some environmental hazards, but outside of that, I never used it much. You do need it, though, to kill the second boss, which gives you the Berserk power. Guess what that does? The third power is Invulnerability. Once you get all 3 powers, you can get yourself out of some really nasty situations pretty easily. The artifact has 3 charges, and you can recharge it by equipping it near a human corpse, one that hasn't already been zombified. This will absorb the corpse and give you another charge. Besides the artifact, you get 2 new weapons in this expansion. Again, weapon might be a strong word here when we're talking about the grabber gun, which, if you've played Half-Life 2 and you know what the gravity gun is, it's the same thing. You pick things up with it and throw those things. You can also grab enemy projectiles and toss them back, usually but not always killing the enemy in one hit when you do. You can also grab lost souls and those spider things and baby things and toss them across the room, killing them instantly. Makes them so much less irritating. There's some debate around who came up with the whole gravity gun idea first, and honestly, who gives a shit? A cool idea is a cool idea is a cool idea. And then, of course, you get the super shotgun, and much like it was in Doom 2, it's basically your I win button. There are only a handful of enemies that won't go down in one hit from this thing. The only drawbacks to it are the obvious long reload, and that you have to be basically right up in the thick of the shit for it to be really effective, but it is really effective if you use it right. I don't care for the model, though. The only uglier gun I've seen is Duke Nukem 3D's pistol. Resurrection of Evil introduces a new level design mechanic of sorts, where you have to resupply power to certain parts of a level. by taking power cells from other parts of the level. This will usually mean that those areas get a lot darker, so your flashlight will be invaluable here. Having it mounted to your armor really does help. I don't care what anyone says. Blah, 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 atmosphere, blah, blah, blah. The game is still plenty atmospheric either way. And you still get the PDAs from fallen scientists and other employees to get storage locker codes and general world building, though there aren't nearly as many audio logs in the expansion, probably because they just didn't want to spend the extra money on voice actors. Once you get through everything and make your way into hell, your final boss fight is a wall texture. No, I'm just kidding. It's the very obvious bad guy from the base game, all turned into a flying demon and shit. If you have the BFG handy, it's a pretty easy fight. Boss fights aren't really this game's strong suit, but honestly, now that I think about it, boss fights aren't really id Software's strong suit in general, at least not until Doom 2016. I still love them though. Now it's on to the last expansion, the Lost Mission. Again, not the most creative name in the world, but here we are. This expansion is exclusive to the BFG Edition, but I think there's a mod that lets you play it from the original version. This takes place during the initial Mars invasion in the base game, and you're the last surviving member of Bravo Team. Your job is to find an experimental teleporter that was captured by the demons and can be used to teleport them all the way over to Earth. Lost Mission has 8 levels, 2 in energy processing, 2 underneath Mars City, 2 in the Exus Labs, and 2 in Hell. The game doesn't take your weapons away when you go into Hell in either one of the expansions, so the expansions get 1 point above the base game just for that alone. The only weapons you don't get in Lost Mission are the Artifact and the Soul Cube, both for very obvious reasons. You don't need them anyway. It's not like it's a terribly difficult expansion. Both expansions do offer a handful of new enemies, most of which honestly aren't really worth talking about, but the one that's particularly noteworthy is called the Bruiser. It almost looks like a bear in a hell, almost, but it's got a TV screen attached to its mouth that displays human teeth for some reason, and it acts like a much more aggressive Mancubus. You can grab its rockets and throw them back at it to take it down in just 1 or 2 hits, but it does hurt a lot if it hits you. The final boss for the Lost Mission is just a weaker version of the Guardian boss from the base game, but without the mechanics. Just hit it with a BFG a few times and then it dies. There really isn't too much to say about Lost Mission. It doesn't really offer anything new besides levels. They're not bad levels, they're perfectly serviceable, and the 2 Hell levels are really well done visually, quite possibly the best in the game. But the expansion as a whole really isn't anything to write home about. So that's it, that's the Doom 3 BFG Edition. Sure, it isn't exactly the same as the original version, but if all it had to offer was some slightly higher resolution textures, then who cares? The added checkpoints are a huge quality of life feature, and you can also manually save anywhere, even on the Xbox 360 port. It's really nice. No matter how you play Doom 3, it's worth playing. Don't let anyone tell you that one way is inherently better than another way. Play what you want, how you want, who gives a shit. The only wrong way to play is from a subscription streaming service. We don't do that here. The only thing I will say is Doom 3 leans pretty heavy into the strobe light effect from time to time, so keep that in mind if you've got any kind of photosensitivity issues. Anyway, next up is going to be Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. I want to get that video out before the sequel later this month. I don't normally cover new games unless they're indie, but I know I'm going to have words to say about this one. So thank you all so very much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and share. Those things all go a long way towards helping my tiny little channel grow. And I will see you in the next one.